Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? We are getting ready for battle. It is the final derby match before the split in an SPFL title race that is akin to one earlier this century. It's been so long since there's been a meaningful title race where not only both teams are really, not got both hands on the trophy at this point of the season, but there's also the fight, the struggle to earn that automatic Champions League promotion into the new format that guarantees 8 matches, and if you do halfway okay, maybe even as well as 10, which is a huge money spinner for either side of Glasgow. In the video today, we're going to be previewing where the game could be won and lost, predicted 11s, and everything else in between at any point in the video today. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Get into the comment section on this one and let me know who do you think is going to be the standout player for Celtic, as well as what you think the final result is going to be. Are we going to get this one over the line? Because for me, this is an absolute must-win game. With Rangers still holding that game in hand, the 1 point lead we've got on the table is a bit of a false situation at the moment because you expect them to go and win their game in hand. Now, I know there's going to be this derby at the weekend and one more after the split, but for me, we have to get the result in this one to give us the breathing space going into the split to make sure that we are in the driving seat, we are in control of our own destiny. So for me, this is a massive cup final situation. And the first time the sides met this season in the league, it was away to Ibrox. And it was a game where, there was a different manager in charge, but confidence, wasn't exactly high. We hadn't really hit our straps at this point. The best 11 hadn't really been figured out. We had all these problems in defence. The Rangers team here looks a little bit different to the Rangers team we find nowadays, certainly. But we can't really use too much from this match as an indicator on what to expect at Ibrox this time, because for some unknown reason, they just let McGregor have the freedom of the pitch for the first half, and it really did give us a foothold in the match that they couldn't really come back from. So I don't think we can read too much into this one. The last time Celtic played Rangers, it was very much more convincing than the scoreline would suggest. The consolation free kick goal from Tavernier at the end kind of says Rangers blushes on the face of looking back at this game, but this was a very convincing result that, we could have scored 3 or 4 in quite easily. And what was really good about this was the energy in midfield and, the options that we had in the wide areas. It gave Rangers a lot of problems on both sides of the pitch. They tried to get Yilmaz and Tavernier really high and wide and give our wingers and fullbacks some problems, and it never really amounted to much in the match. And if we look at Rangers' form since the last time we played them, it's been fairly consistent in terms of, they've been getting results and stuff like that, but the shape and the style of play and the personnel that they've been selecting across that time. Yeah, we know that there's the refereeing appointments may come into this a little bit as well. But Rangers have got a good system going here. And the last time that we faced them, and they were very well drilled in terms of their roles, the system, the style of play, etc., was probably under Steven Gerrard. And that was when, they were a wee bit harder to handle. This team is very firmly built upon 2 defensive midfielders that can give them the rigidity in midfield to allow the wider players a bit more freedom up and down the line, particularly the fullbacks, Tavernier and Yilmaz, to support whoever is the wide attackers that are going there. And then between Lawrence and TikTok Todd here, they've got their man in the middle of the pitch. It's either got a bit of guile, Cantwell, or a bit more industry and a bit more power like Lawrence. And Kevin Kyle, Cyril Dessers, seems to have nailed his position in here as the starting striker, and he's not really been in that great of form, it must be said, although if you listen to the papers and pundits and all the rest of it, they would have you thinking he's he's the best striker in Scotland, but I don't see that being the case. He's the target man. Fabio Silva's a little bit of quality, and then some of these other players like McCausland, Cortez, Diamande, they're still a little bit unknown elements to me, certainly, but the boy Dujon Sterling has definitely developed under the current manager Clement, and his pace and power is something that I think they're going to try and use against us. Now, I think the Celtic team basically picks itself at this stage. So many times this season, the headaches, the problems, everything has been in defence. But finally, after Carter Vickers completing 90 minutes at the Spaghetti Had, we should have a first strength back 4 and goalkeeper that can play the 90 minutes. And yeah, we should have some defensive reinforcements on the bench if yellow cards go against us or there's a wee knock or an injury or something like that. Don't get me wrong. But I do feel that Carter Vickers coming through the 90 minutes is a huge sign of intent, his fitness and availability ahead of this game. And between Scales and Carter Vickers, I'm not really worried about Dessers. As long as one of these guys is shoulder to shoulder with him, anytime he's played through, I'm more than confident that Scales on the left or Carter Vickers on the right will be able to cope with him in a one-on-one, a 2v1 kind of situation here. Alistair Johnson, no, and Greg Taylor are going to have a real double shift on their hands is probably the best way of putting it, because on the right hand side they are going to want to put Tavernier really high up in the pitch. We know how attacking he wants to be, and if Goujon Sterling is going to be on this side of the pitch here as well, then for Taylor, we know his weakness is the physicality, is the actual defensive side of the game here. We know Dyson can help recover in there, and if we've got Hatate on this position, Hatate is very good at recovery as well as Dyson Maeda. I'm not too worried that that's a weakness in our team, but I do think that this is going to be something that they're going to try and exploit, and they're going to try and get, goal scoring opportunities and some dominance in the game. Similarly on the right hand side, with Alistair Johnson against Fabio Silva in a 1v1, I actually think Alistair Johnson is probably going to have a good old time here. But the Kun, or Yang's probably going to be Kun against Borna Barisic, is going to maybe be a fantastic weakness for us to expose, because Kun is really coming onto a game right now, and the way I would describe this guy, like in terms of how he passes and how he playmakes and stuff, it's quite silent, it's quite quiet. Some of the balls he plays, it's always like you can barely tell he's even passed the ball until you see it moving on. And I think that little bit of ingenuity, trickery, guile, flair, whatever we want to call it, could be too much for back post Barisic here, especially with Suter on this side when you've got the pace of someone like Kyogoal coming through, and Dyson Maeda potentially in the pocket. If penalty here is getting caught out of position. The wide areas for me, what Rangers do with them. Does Barisic go as high as Tavernier? Does he sit a bit further back? Does Tavernier go as high as I maybe think he does? Or does Dyson Maeda kind of nullify him and force him to stay a bit further back and buy us a bit more space in this area of the pitch where, we normally see Taylor come inside, Rio kind of split outside and give these players some more problems to deal with in terms of who they're marking, where the position is. And then when we are floating the ball in possession from left to right or whatever, we can then try and get that space ball over with the switch of play for someone like Johnson and Kun to come and try and double up on the other side. So I think that could be a real feature of our play here. It's something that's quite common with Brendan Rodgers Celtic, is that control and that tempo. And if we are comfortable in possession around the halfway line, around these areas here, then that quick switch of play from one side to the other, and particularly with how good we were on the right-hand side with Kun and Alistair Johnson in the last two games, really, I think that could be a real avenue, a real route to go for us. But make no mistake about it, Taylor and Alistair Johnson are definitely going to need to keep their wits about them, keep their positional sense all the way through the game, and really manage what risks they're taking, because again, as much as we're looking to exploit any spaces that they empty, they're going to do that as much. And as much as I'm very confident that Carter Vickers and Scales can be able to deal with Dessers, if one of them are forced to pull out and get a supporting player, whoever it is, in the counter-attack, then those are the spaces and the opportunities that clinical strikers could take advantage of. Huge game for Joe Hart. I hope to see some heroics from him, because normally in these derbies it has been a tale of the goalkeepers, for better or for worse. So the ambition level of Rangers in the wide area might actually play into our hands a little bit, because the amount of teams that we play against that want to just sit in, Rangers might do this as well, sit in deep, let us have possession, and then look to go and counter-attack, is basically every team we play against. If Rangers do try and do this against us, I do think that with Iwata in the team, if Iwata does start over McGregor, I think O'Reilly and Hatate are going to have a field day if that's the way Rangers set up. I think Rangers' best option is to try and attack us, is to try and be the dominant team in the game. And if they do that, if it's TikTok Todd in here in the midfield, I don't think he's going to get an inch out of Tomoki Iwata. Lawrence, who could be favoured over him in this position, then makes the Rangers midfield a bit more formidable on a man-for-man basis here. And, if Rangers do go that way, then I do think that they're probably going to keep, back post a little bit further back. And then you've got the likes of Tavernier, Goujon, Sterling, these kind of guys to maybe double up on the right-hand side, overload that area, and then try and get crosses into the box, because that's what they do, isn't it? But Lawrence, Cantwell, no matter who starts in the midfield position here, I actually think Tomoki Iwata, O'Reilly and Hatate is the most balanced midfield that we could be putting out. And to be honest with you, if they want to have a midfield battle, with Hatate on for 60, 70 minutes, if McGregor's on the bench to come on as supplement for him, if he's not fit enough to start, I really do feel that we've got so many fantastic quality options in that midfield area. And if it is going to be blood and thunder and cards and controversy and everything else, then we're going to need to have that all the way through the 90 minutes. Because, yeah, Cantwell and Lawrence are kind of interchangeable, but really the rest of the Rangers midfield, they don't really have that depth and quality, if you can call it that, in their other positions. Whereas if O'Reilly was to come off for a Bernardo or something like that, like depending on the minute, you may not be too worried. Again, Rio for McGregor, doesn't really Tomo for McGregor. Again, you don't really feel that the team gets any weaker. I expect to see Rangers try and dominate the ball, especially if they're going to play Lundstrom, Diamandi and Lawrence in the midfield. I think that's a signal of intent as well, that they are going to want to have a bit more possession, a bit more control in the game. And if that's the way they go, then we will need to work a little bit harder to turn the ball over. But as soon as we do turn the ball over, it will be a bit harder for the midfielders. But that's where the vision of Hatate and O'Reilly will come into its own, because these are the spaces and these are the opportunities that we really do want to exploit. Because if this is the situation that we find ourselves in, And, you know, we're able to turn the ball over and play it down to a channel for a Dyson or a Kyogo directly, like we've seen in derbies before. I just think these are the goal-scoring opportunities that we really want our attackers to have, and we don't get the pleasure of against most opposition that are going to camp in nice and deep. So if Rangers do want to dominate, do want to take the game by the scruff of the neck, being at home with all the pressure that they're going to have from their 48,000 hate crime advocates, then that also will probably play right into our hands, because Kun and Yang, quite good interchangeable levels of quality. Even having Forrest and Ida on the bench have shown that they can be effective. Again, I just think the strength and depth for us is really going to show out true here. And whether it is we get to counter-attack and run into space with our fast attacking, you know, incisive players, or if they are going to camp in, try and make things a bit tighter and try and go DAZN, then again, I think that plays right into our hands if we've got this quality of an 11, because Taylor, if we're going to get possession, he's fantastic at overloading in these areas here, and the synergy that he has with Dyson Maeda and Hatate playing around him as well. If they do want to give us a huge portion of the pitch and the lion's share of possession, then the left-hand side for us, I think, is tried and tested in this fixture enough to think that we'll get the chances for the likes of Kyogo, maybe O'Reilly coming into the box as a third-man run, maybe even Kun on the back post here. Now, as we've seen with their European results, we can really not write Rangers off in any way, shape or form. They do have good industry. They do have a good knack of getting results against the biggest teams that they play against. Unfortunately for us, they've not done that to us this season yet, but it is a game that I do believe is a must-win. They're going to be hyper-motivated for this, especially a lot of the, you know, the bridesmaids that are in this team, you know, Penalty here, Goldson, all these guys that have been on the receiving end of ridicule, basically, throughout their Rangers career. I think they're going to see this as their opportunity to, you know, rectify maybe some of the history that they feel that they've missed out on over the period of time. So the motivation from the blue side of Glasgow is undeniable. And with this being a must-win game for us, tensions are going to be really high in the game. And the refereeing decisions, do they get penalties? Who gets booked at what minute of the game? I do feel it's going to be a razor edge match where the finest of margins are going to make the difference in it. And refereeing and VAR and all that stuff to one side, I actually feel a little bit more confident pre-game than maybe I have earlier this season for the form that we've found with a lot of key players and having Hatate back in position. You know, Kyogo loves a goal against Rangers, and you know Dyson Maeda is always up for this fixture if he's not actually contributing for a goal or an assist. You know he is playing a huge role in nullifying their artillery on the right hand side, if nothing else, in terms of tracking back and holding him higher up the pitch, that kind of thing, which in turn does buy space for our more quality players to come into this one. I do think an early goal is going to be really important for us. If Rangers do get the first goal, then the pressure's on us. They are then allowed to camp in, but then the risk of the counter-attack is even more dangerous, so it's not quite the same situation as when you're just given possession to dominate the game to then try and open up and take the lead. So I think the first goal is really crucial, and it's going to really have a huge impact, like it does in most football matches, don't get me wrong. But for this one, if there's a goal in the first 5, a goal in the first 10, a goal in the first 2 minutes or something like that, and it goes against us or it goes for us, I think the sliding doors effect is there to be had. It can really take the wind out of Rangers' sails, or it could really put us on the back foot. I think Kyogo's great for a goal in this game, like I've already mentioned, and I think he will get a goal at the weekend. And I don't know why, but I just think that Hatate has got a wonder goal in him, a bit of magic, because he's not really done anything this season yet, and you've seen how motivated he is, how fit and firing he was ready to go at the weekend. And I think coming into this game, he loves the big matches, Hatate, and he'll want to make his mark on this season for us to go on and win the title. And this is the match for him to do it in, away to them, before we then go into the split where, you know, winners and losers will truly be decided. But we want to go into that in the best position possible, and I think Rio and Kyogo are going to get on the score sheet for us. Sadly, I don't think we're going to get out this game with a clean sheet, whether it is a penalty or a direct free kick or a bit of open play. I think Rangers are good for a goal in this one, but I really do hope that Joe Hart does get the clean sheet in this one and it finishes 2-0. But for me, I think this is going to be a 2-1 victory to Celtic. Don't forget to get into the comment section on this one and let me know what your thoughts and feelings are on the game. Who's going to be the standout player, the most important player, score prediction, and everything else. On screen there now is some other stuff that we've made on the channel that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and we'll catch you on the next one. Hail, hail.